Welcome to E.G.Dot and friends. My name is Elden Killian. Today we are going to be presenting It's Getting Hot in Here. Every game ranked monthly for June 2021. This is my series where I rank every game that I played in the previous month. So this is July now, so I'm going to be ranking every game that I played in the month of June. Some stats here if you're wondering. Actually, before we get started, I always forget to say this. If you like what you're seeing or if you want to follow along with what I do this every month, please like and subscribe the video. I don't know. Just get it out there. Anyway, a couple stats for this month. I played 51 plays of games this month of 20 different games. Of those 20 different games, 12 of them were new to me. So broke open some new games this month. Played against 14 different opponents, not including any solo plays, of which 3 of the games I played this month were solo only. So just ran the solo mode on those games, and we'll talk about that as they come up. And we're halfway through the year, so I thought it might be interesting to have some halfway through the year stats. So far, I have 253 plays of 253 individual plays of games, which was over the course of 96 different games. So I almost hit my 100 game mark, which is something like in a year. I always like to play at least 100 different games. Looks like I'm going to easily get there this year. Maybe I have to make that goal 200. Anyway, but of those games, 63 of those 96 games I played this year were new to me games. So about 2/3 almost were new to me games, which is I think a little higher clip than I normally have. I do tend to play a lot of different games, but it seems like this year I've been opening new games a little more often than I have in the past. But anyway, let's go ahead and get on with this list. And anyway, game number 1, or number 20, I should say, Pizza Party. I picked this up at a thrift store. I thought it looked interesting. It had some cool looking dice. This is from Paleo University Games. I played it only one time. I won't say I'll never play this game again, but this is not the heaviest of strategy games out there. This is very similar to Teenz, with a theme here of sorts, where you're trying to put toppings on the pizza. So you're rolling your dice as fast as you can and try to match the symbols on the card, which are these funky pizza-shaped cards, which are difficult to shuffle, and it's hard to display this game on the shelf because of the weird shape. And it takes a game Teenz, which is silly. I've played a bunch with my kids. It's just a silly, quick game, something to do, kill a few minutes. It makes it a little bit worse. So what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to finish 6 slices of pizza before the other people. However, you're randomly picking up these slices of pizza. Some of them have 3 ingredients, some of them have 5 ingredients. Well, one is definitely easier than the other. So a game that's already kind of based on just, as fast as you can roll. So there's a heavy dose of luck involved in there. Making that luck a bigger thing. Because if I draw a bunch of 3 ingredient cards and you draw a bunch of 5 ingredient cards, no matter how lucky you're rolling, it's more likely I'm going to beat you. Anyway, Pizza Party. This is, as I was looking through BGG, it's had a couple of different names, but it's always kind of a similar thing. The dice are pretty cool, which is why I bought it anyway. But anyway, Pizza Party, number 20. Number 19, Chakra. I picked this one up. It was a recommended game from the Spiel des Jahres committee this year. It was not I don't believe it was nominated, but it was a recommended game, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly. And I was able to score a copy from Blam, but this is from Luca Kriza, and this is definitely a game where this is, looking at the bio and stuff, I think this is someone who's really into this idea of chakras and made a game out of it. And it is cute. Everything is cute about it. The board, the artwork, the components are fine and nice. That was nice little those little plastic gem things that are in some other games. And what I'm going to say about this game is that I played it once. I am unlikely to play this one again. I did not think that there was enough real strategy there. You're trying to move these gems up and down this thing, and I don't know. I didn't feel like it did a great thing. Maybe I should give this one more try. But I don't know. I just was not impressed with it at all. Other than how cute it looked, and I could see maybe this being a game you play with your kids, like your 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, as try to teach them as they're getting into these like more strategy type games. But I thought it was really basic. I didn't think the decisions were interesting at all. But anyway, number 19, Chakra. Anyway. Number 18, Empire Express. This is a kind of stripped down version of Empire Builder, which is a crayon rail game. And it's called a crayon rail game because you have these big like map pieces, and the board has like a dry erase coating on it. So not dry erase, it comes with crayons, which is a crayon. And so you're drawing your track from point to point on the map, and then you're moving your train along the trail that you made, go from city to city, and picking up and delivering goods. So Empire Builder is a game. Technically, this is a new to me game. I've never played Empire Express before this month, but I've played Empire Builder a ton when I was growing up. In my teenage years, this was a game that my sister introduced to our family, and we played it a bunch for a while. Like, it was our game of choice, sort of before we encountered Catan and games like that. But yeah, Empire Builder, I have a lot of fond memories with it. There are problems with the game. This version I picked up super cheap miniature market sale. It was in the clearance bin. So I was like, oh, and I don't have a good copy of Empire Builder, and it's just sort of for nostalgia. I was like, oh, I'll grab this. I do have a copy of Empire Builder. It's a really old version, which I got for free from somebody who was being really nice to me. But it's not a great version, and I've just never gone out and gotten a good one. But this was in there. And what it does is it takes the map, makes it a lot smaller, and it takes the rules and condenses them and makes them a lot easier. But it strips away a lot of the options and makes the game a little easier. Because the game could go on for a long time. It's just it can be just a really long game, and there's like this long arc to it. So what Empire Express does is it takes the game, it jumpstarts you, it makes your decision tree a little bit smaller. In the regular game, there are 3 contracts that you could possibly do on each card. In this one, there's 2. And then also on the card, it shows you where you can pick up and deliver and states it in words. You can pick up this good here, and you can deliver it there. In the older versions, it's a lot of like staring at a cheat sheet, trying to figure out where things are. This makes it a lot easier. One thing this does is it gives you a bunch of starter track, and so you're not starting from scratch. And then it actually has an option, which we played with, where it gives you 3 starter cards that match your starter track. So you can actually start the game and make 2 or 3 deliveries without building any track, without doing anything really. And so here's my summation. If you want to get a quick little dip and just kind of see if this is the type of game for you, this is probably a good option. It's going to keep the playtime short. The person I played it with had never played any of the Crayon Rail games before, and he was intrigued by this. But the first thing was like, yeah, let's not do the starter track. Let's not do the starter cards. Just make this all based on my decisions. Because one thing, the game is a race. It's a race to $150 million. They gave us $50 million to start, gave us a bunch of track, gave us some cards. With those cards, I could deliver about $50 million worth of goods without do anything, just taking my turns, moving my train to the city I need to go to, bringing it back. And then from there I had to build some track. But I don't know. It is like our decision space was too small. But again, if you just want to introduce this concept to someone, it's probably an okay way to do it. Like, but you don't want to commit to like a 4-hour experience. Yeah, it'll kind of dip your toes in the water. It also stripped away some of the end game conditions. It stripped away some of this. There are some events. There's like bad things that can happen, and in the regular game, they can be kind of devastating. None of the events even affected us in our game. It just didn't affect us. It could have, and the effects that it had were not that devastating, even if they would have hurt us. In some other versions, like you can wash out track, and if you're short on money, that could be really devastating. That I don't see this happening. All it would do is slow you down. You lose your turn, and you can't do stuff. Anyway, Empire Express, number 18. For someone who's played the game a lot, not a fulfilling experience at all. But could be a good way to introduce the concept to somebody. Number 17, Zombie Teenz Evolution. This is a Spiel des Jahres nominated game. I played. So this is a campaign / legacy of sorts type game. So you kind of unlock things as you go along, and it gives you different kind of goals and some like challenges as you're going along. I don't know. The basic game I feel is super basic. It's cooperative, and you have to cooperate, but I don't know. It's just like it's just moving your guy in the position to move things along and trying to outlast these zombies come out until you can get the stuff there. We did win sometimes. We lost a few times. Played it 6 times. I'm not super jazzed to go out and like try to finish the campaign. That's not interesting to me. The games are really quick though. So I don't know. Maybe you bring this out with some of my younger kids. Maybe they'll enjoy it a little more. But I don't know. Wasn't a huge fan. Zombie Teenz Evolution. And this is actually like a sequel to there's a Zombie Kids, I think, or something, which I have not played. But I've heard it's very similar. Number 16, Mountain Goats. This is from Stefan Rishouse and BoardGameTables.com. This has a can't stop type feel to it. I've played this game a few times. I actually really like it. I think it looks really cool. And this concept of it's like a really short game. And it is interesting. What you do is you roll 4 dice. You're going to pair or use those dice individually to make a number between 5 and 10. And you can move up your mountain, go up the mountain until you get to the top. And when you get to the top, you can start collecting points. However, if somebody also gets to the top and you're already there, they knock you down to the bottom. Then they can start collecting points. It is interesting. It's kind of comparable to a game called Can't Stop, which I enjoy quite a bit. But Can't Stop is better because Can't Stop is all about pushing your luck. You can keep rolling until you bust. And this one doesn't have that. You just roll the dice, and then you're just trying to make your best decision out of the dice that you have. There's a little bit of, if you roll multiple ones, you get a little choice in what you're doing. You can move some of the dice to different numbers, and so you can choose. But I don't know. It's not a bad game. It's not a great game. It kind of exists. If you need a 10-minute game, it's a decent option. Anyway, Mountain Goats, number 16 for this month. Prolix. You know what? When I first started getting into hobby games, this game was like on my radar for some reason. I think it came out in 2010, which is right around I started getting on Board Game Geek and checking stuff out. And it's a word game, and back then especially, like I was super into like Scrabble and like speed Scrabble with my family, and word game boggled, big game in our household, and so word games really interested me, but I never got a chance to play this. I found a copy at a thrift store and brought it home. I haven't played this with other people yet, but this is one of the solo only games I did. I tried the solo challenge twice. I actually really enjoyed the challenge. Is it a great, fantastic game? I don't know. if you like trying to make words and challenge yourself to make big words with a limited letter set, it's a cool, fun challenge. I'll have to try and play this with some other people and see how like the competitive game works. But after I played it, I mentioned to a friend of mine, I was like, I would love like a phone app for this, where I could just like solo give me these letters, try to score my best score, and man, I'd probably play that for hours and hours. As it is, Gilhova, I think you made a cool game. Prolix. I'll probably bring this out some more. I do definitely want to try and get this and play this with other people, but and see how the competitive game works. But yeah, Prolix, interesting game. And if you like word games, check it out. I believe he actually has a follow-up. I think it's called Wordsy. He must, and I don't know anything about it other than I think I've heard him talk about it on podcast, and I think he just tweaked some things and did something to the gameplay. But I think that if you're going to find a new version, that's probably the one you'll find. But this is cool to find at a thrift store and pick it up. Anyway, Prolix. Number 14, Biblios, Quill and Parchment. Biblios is a card game that I am a huge fan of. And then this roll and write version came out. There's an older roll and write version which is called Scripts and Scribes, which I have not played, but looks interesting. And then this came out, and anyway, it intrigues me. Steve Finn makes some cool games. I tried this out. The one thing, I play this 2-player. I do not think that is the ideal way to play it, and I haven't had a chance to play it with more than 2 players yet. And it does the thing in a 2-player game that I don't like, where I have to like totally manage like a third dummy player, and it's not like a full player, but it's a little bit involved, and it kind of takes me out of my game, and so I don't love that. But I do have this on my list. I do definitely want to play it again with 3 and or 4 players, because I do think I would like this game higher than what this is showing on my list right now, because I do think it's kind of interesting. It plays really quick for the most part. I think it's like 8 turns long, so you roll the dice 8 times, and you're doing what you're doing. But it has anyway. I can't talk a lot about it. I'm putting it at number 14 for this month, which seems kind of lukewarm, but I do want to play this some more. So hopefully next month you'll hear me talk about it some more. Anyway, Biblios, Quill and Parchment. Number 13, Red Rising. Got a couple plays of this. This is from Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier and Alexander Schmidt. And this is a drafting game of sorts, where you are trying to create a hand of cards that interact with one another and score points based on their interactions of the other cards in your deck. So you're kind of building your own scoring opportunities, and there's some other points in the game. So when you play cards and pick up cards, you're doing some other things that are going to score you some points. You're getting a couple of tracks and like some area majority sections that you're trying to get in. But a lot of the points and a lot of the interaction is basically play this card, do the thing that it does when it plays, pick up another card, and hopefully those cards in your hand, as you're doing that, coalesce into some sweet combos that score a bunch of points. I do like the game. There's a lot of cards, lots of things to think about as you're playing the game, and there's a lot of reading. Just every card is unique, and you just have to kind of read every card, and generally there's a number of decisions each turn you have to think about how they all impact with one another, so it can slog down a little bit, and which is kind of my detractor. That's why this is kind of slid down. Hopefully I get to play some more in the future, and we'll see how it fleshes out over time. But it's definitely an interesting game. I know there's like a deluxe edition and the regular edition. I have the regular edition, and it's nice. Cards are nice. Everything works. Everything works as intended. I don't feel like I'm playing a cheap game having the cheaper version. But anyway, Red Rising, based on the book series. If you know that book series. Number 12, Everything on One Card. This is the second game I had. I played this last month, but this is a cool game where you actually get to write on the cards. The cards have like a dry erase thing on them, so you can write right on the cards and erase them at the end. Silver and Gold is another game that uses this thing. And anyway, I see this BGG rank of 10,000 and something, and I'm wondering if that's just it hasn't gotten into enough hands yet, because I think it's a clever game. If you like games like Quicks, if you like games like Quinto and games like that, this is right there with those. It works well. The little gimmick of drawing on the cards is fun for me. I don't know. It's not hard. It's a game that my wife enjoys quite a bit. Yeah, I can see myself playing this game quite a bit more. Anyway, Everything on One Card. Pretty good game. This is not going to be your evening. This is going to be in between games. This is going to be to start the night off, or just something to do to kill a few minutes. But good, interesting game. I think the English version is not quite out yet. When it comes out, maybe the BGG rank will go up a little bit, because I quite enjoy it. Similo. Man, I've just played lots of Similo. I brought this out I'm a school teacher. It's the end of the school year in June. Last day of school, I brought this out and played with some teachers as we were having our farewell lunch and stuff like that. And yeah, man, I don't know. There's just something about this game. It's easy to play. I also played this with my son, along with Everything on One Card. We were doing a little experiment where we played 3 games at the same time. And so we played Similo together. We were playing Everything on One Card. And then we were playing Mountain Goats, actually. Another game we talked about. We played all 3 of those games at the same time. We actually played Similo 4 times in the time it took us to finish the other 2 games. So we take one turn and go to the next game. Just sort of a crazy chaos, fun thing to do. But it was fun having, in the middle of these 2 competitive games, having this cooperative game off to the side that we were also playing at the same time. Kind of splitting our brains so we were getting on the same wavelength. There's 2 new sets, Animals and Wild Animals, that came out, and they're fun. I have found them to be a little easier. Me and my son, we played it 4 times in a row while we were playing 2 other games, and we beat it all 4 times. We won easily all 4 times. And I don't know if that just has something to do with our brains melding together, or just the way the animals are similar and dissimilar to one another, I think is a little more straightforward in my brain. And especially, I don't know, playing with him, it just seemed like it was more straightforward. Anyway, Similo. Good little quick game that you can play. Number 10, Fantasy Realms. So we talked about Red Rising earlier. Fantasy Realms is actually the game that Red Rising is based off of. So in Fantasy Realms, you start with a hand of 7 cards. And on your turn, you're going to pick up a card either from the top of the deck or from the previous discards. And you're going to add it to your hand, and then you're going to discard a card. And what you're trying to do is you're just trying to make your hand and make those cards interact one with another to score the most points possible that you can figure out in that hand. Like Red Rising, I think it suffers from every card is unique, and you just have to read everything. But better than Red Rising is it doesn't have that second component where you're interacting and having a play action on these cards. So because every card in Red Rising kind of has 2 functions, you can play it to do the cool ability, and then it also has the scoring thing that depends on other stuff. It's the brain capacity it takes to play the game is just a little too much for what level of game it really is. But Fantasy Realms, the only thing that matters is when that card's in your hand, how is it going to interact with other cards? And there's still a fair bit of reading. You got to read all the cards and kind of understand how the cards are going to interact with one another. But it doesn't stray over into that, oh man, this is too hard to grok. I played this game a couple times a few years ago with some buddies. I finally got my own copy, and so I played my own copy and played this a couple times in a row. And I think this is a game I'll bring out fairly often in certain situations. And so you'll probably see this on the list some more in the future. But anyway, Fantasy Realms, number 10. Number 9, Paleo. This is one of the games I played solo only. I played it 9 times all by myself. This is another one of those. This is a Kennerspiel nominee, I think, from the Spiel des Jahres committee, and you can play it with other people. I have not tried that out yet, and the game is fun. The game is also incredibly difficult, to the point where, so I've beat it twice, played it 9 times. And there's different modules. So I played the first module 5 times before I finally beat it, and I played the second the second level, which, anyway, you throw in different cards from different modules depending on what level you're on. So level 2 took me four times to beat it. And my problem with the game is those 7 times that I lost, either didn't do anything. Like, you're trying to basically score 5 points. You're trying to do the thing 5 times. I scored 0 points almost every time that I lost. I think one time I lost, I scored 1 or 2 points. But other times, I was just beating my head trying to make these things happen, and they're hard to make happen. And I get it. Thousands of years ago, the caveman, it was a life or death situation pretty much all the time, and you died a lot. And I don't know. I just felt like I was just constantly taking wounds. And then the times I beat it, I almost felt like, okay, I got lucky enough at the beginning to be able to overcome this early onslaught of just terribleness to the point where I could just build up my resources and not have to worry about that survival portion of the game where it's like, okay, I gotta not take wounds, I gotta not it, because both times I won, I was able to get into situations where I was either had a lot of protection, or I was able to build up a big amount of food. I was able to take a bunch of wounds without my guys dying right away, and so I was able to kind of carry that forward and accumulate enough symbols to fulfill the requirements to get the points that you need to win the game. And I don't know. I need to play it some more, I guess. It either feels too lucky or too frustrating or something. There's something about it that this is not going to be one of my all-time favorite games, I don't think. But it skirts the line of being too challenging, at least for my puny brain. And maybe there's just something about it that I'm not understanding that will make the game easier and more competitive. I guess that's the thing, is I don't feel competitive with the game. I'm either crushing the game or the game is just crushing me. There's no, both times I won, I was like, okay, I got this in the bag. I got into situations where I was like, okay, I can, even if bad stuff's happening, I can kind of fend this off. I have enough resources that I don't have to be scrambling, and I was just kind of cruising to the victory. I felt like I never had, when you're playing Pandemic, sometimes it's like, you're down to, you have 1 or 2 turns left, and if you don't win right now, you're going to lose. I never had that sense of feeling. When I lost, it was like, I am losing. I can't get out of this death spiral. I am just dead. And then I died. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. But as I'm talking about it, I was like, I want to get it out right now and I want to play it again. So what does that mean? Maybe it's a great game. Maybe. I don't know. Number 8, Loot Island. This is another game I played a few years ago at a convention. And it just kind of passively, I enjoyed it. This is not the heaviest game on the market. This is not the best game on the market, but it's a little game, and I played it, and I was like, I kind of passively been looking for it, but I couldn't really find it anywhere. And then I was just at my local game store, and they had 3 copies on the shelf, and it's like, oh, hey. And it was $20, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna grab this. And I actually asked him, I was like, has this been on the shelf? Did you just get this? Where did you get this from? I don't know where they got it from, but yeah, we did. We got in some copies. We were putting it into our subscription box for this month. And I was like, man, not that I've been like searching for it, but I've looked it up online. I couldn't find it on any of the regular places I go to find games online. I kind of gone whenever I go to a new game store. It's one of those games that's in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, what if they have Loot Island? And I've never seen it. Anyway, here's how you play the game. You have a hand of cards. There's going to be 2 ports on this island that are going to score that you're potentially get treasures from at the end of the round. And the game will play for 5 rounds. And so what you're doing is you're just playing cards to these ports. And it only pays out if you get enough cards on the port. And you most of the time you can't do it by yourself. So you need other people to be putting cards on the port so that you can also get stuff. And then you only get cards if there's treasures on them. So sometimes like you're 3 people are putting cards on a port, but then there's only 2 treasures that ends up coming out of it, and that third person who is helping you get there doesn't get anything. Or it kind of goes in a draft, so the first person there could potentially get 2 treasures out of that, and everybody else only gets 1 or something like that. And so there's this kind of push-pull where you're helping other people, but sometimes the amount you want to help is not quite there. And sometimes you can come up with like this. Sometimes it's always fun when a game like allows you to feel like you were clever. So I was able to negotiate. I was able to work a situation to the point where I was the only person who got, I think it was like 6 treasure cards from this port, because I was able to do it all by myself, without anybody else getting anything. And I felt like me pulling that off was like a clever thing. There was some luck involved. I had to draw the right card. I didn't know I had that going into it, and I just kind of slow played it, and it worked out to my advantage, and propelled me to victory, really. But I don't know, it's not a super long game. There's just something about it where you are trying. There's just enough kind of interaction. There's just enough of this like tenuous cooperation of other games I like. Like Santiago has that, like where you have like this tenuous cooperation with other people. Like you're bidding and you're bribing together, but like your alliances are going to shift very quickly from round to round. And like from play to play, it's like my alliances are kind of shifting around. Like, who am I helping? I don't want to help you too much, but I need you to help me, and you need me to help you. And anyway, again, probably not the greatest game in the world, but I look forward to playing this one again. Loot Island. My number 8 game in June. Number 7, Aquatica. This is a Dice Tower Essentials game from Arcane Wonders, and it's a clever game. I liked it. The production like teeters on being really cool. I felt like the printing on some of the plastic pieces was really chintzy and kind of detracted from the game, but everything else looks really nice. The cards look really nice, high quality. There's just like this printing on these plastic stingray pieces, and they're kind of hard to read, and looks like they didn't get printed very well, honestly. But slight little nitpick. But it's a fun game. It's a game where you're trying to get your combos together, and so you can afford things and score your points. Anyway, I do look forward to playing this game some more. I thought it was good. Number 7, Aquatica for this month. Number 6, Quaddle. I played this one of those games where I played it a couple times at the very end of May, and then the next day I played it again, and I haven't played it since. And not so much because I didn't like the game. I think it's a really good game. Obviously, number 6 for this month. It's just I've had a bunch of other games to get to the table. I've had this big stack of games that kind of backlogged, and so I've been trying to get through them. But yeah, this game is like it almost fills the same sort of section as like Azul, which is one of those all-time great games. I have a video. It's one of those games I've played over 20 times. And Quaddle kind of fits into that mode. However, I feel like strategically it has like this extra level of strategy where you're going to score points based on the cards that you have collected and played during the game. And so it's like Azul plus just a little bit. But It's not overwhelming. I think it's still a game that you can teach to people who are relatively new to gaming, and will hold the attention of gamers like me. But anyway, number 6, Quattle. Number 5, Garum. Garum has an interesting theme and setting. Basically, you are trying to make this fish sauce. But what you're doing in the game has nothing to do with that. That's just sort of like the trappings of the setting. But what this really is a really interesting abstract game, really, where you are trying to get your colors lined up and down, and get your scoring markers on those rows where you have a lot of these, a lot of your color, and so that you can score points. And it does it kind of in a clever way. There's like these little pods of 4 basins, I guess, or whatever, and then you have these tiles. You'll have 3 tiles at a time that you can pick which one, and you're going to put it into one of these 4 spaces. Now, I've only played this game 2-player. When you play 2-player, you end up playing with 2 different colors, and the rulebook was kind of ambiguous about how you do that, so I made a decision where we basically took 2 colors and we scored both of them as though we were playing as 2 different players and added our scores together. And I couldn't figure out exactly if that's what they intended in the rules, but it worked well for us, and so it's probably the way I'll keep playing it, unless someone tells me I'm doing it wrong. But yeah, I don't know. It's clever. It can be a little brain burny sometimes, but not too much, because your choices are limited. You can only go in 1 of 4 spots. You only have 3 tiles that you can put on. When you're playing 2-player, a lot of times though, like and this is where, like, if you're playing with 3 or 4 players, it probably gets a little less strategic. Because one thing, when you're playing 2 colors your own, you now have 6 tiles that you kind of have to play in order. So you're gonna play 1 of the 3 first, and then 1 of the 3 second. And so that first placement sometimes has some added strategy of, okay, how can I link this together with my second tile that I'm going to put down to help out that second tile, or my first tile, my first color. And so, and maybe with 3 or 4 players, you lose that strategy, and maybe I won't like the game as much. But I did find this very intriguing. I found it interesting. It was clever. It was fun. It's a pretty quick game. I look forward to playing it some more. Anyway, number 5, Garum. Number 4, Cubitos. This is a game I've played in the past. Just a really good game. It's a racing game. Again, kind of based sort of a sequel of sorts to Automobiles from AEG. In Automobiles, you're pulling cubes out of a bag and placing them down. In Cubitos, you're actually collecting these dice and rolling them, and depending on their faces, it depends what they can do. And then you're buying more of the dice and building up your pile of dice and rolling them and trying to do what you can do. All meanwhile, trying to race around this board, triggering some special benefits. It just, I don't know. It almost feels like there is some rules explanation, but there's some mostly about the mechanics of how you move those dice along your little personal board and how they refill and stuff. Other than that, it kind of makes sense. You roll the dice. If it has the symbols, you can go do it. If it doesn't, then you don't. And there's a little bit of push your luck element to it. If you roll and you bust, you're done. It's not super mean though, because there's no like one roll bust. Like if you until you have a certain number of symbols, you can keep rolling without the ability of busting. So, which is nice. It's terrible just to have that terrible luck where you're rolling 9 dice and nothing comes up. It's just terrible luck, right? How's that fair? Well, they let you roll again. But yeah, really good game. Cubitos, number 4. Number 3, Castles of Tuscany. This is the follow-up of sorts of Stefan Feld's, one of his most popular games, Castles of Burgundy. And there's a lot of similarities, a lot of the symbology, a lot of like the coloring and stuff like that kind of ports over. However, the way that you play the game is actually fairly different. Quite a bit different. It's all this kind of card-based thing. And it's really quick. Castles of Burgundy can slog on for just a little bit, especially if you're clunking down to think. This one, I think, because your decision space is a little bit smaller, there's no real opportunity to just really break down and have to think really hard. And so it goes pretty quick. you're going to want to know the comparison. Castles of Burgundy is a superior game. In fact, I'd say vastly superior game. However, Castles of Tuscany, I played it 3 times, enjoyed it all 3 times. I thought it was fun. It's a fun game as you're trying to manage your board, and it plays pretty quick to its advantage. But I won't get into this a whole lot. I know sort of like in the gamer community is not as popular as Castles of Burgundy for sure, and I think that's fair. I do think is a disservice to think that they're going to be the same game though, because they are different games for sure. They just kind of share the trappings of similar-ish artwork, and the one thing this game is missing, and I think is why Castles of Burgundy is a superior game, is it doesn't have all of like the mitigation like technology things, if you want to call it that. So like in Castles of Burgundy, like you can play these tiles and now you have like this ongoing ability to like break a rule to the game, and that doesn't really exist in this one. You can amp up certain things like draw more cards or be able to hold more, have more options or stuff like that, but like at no point do you get like this ability to like, okay, I can break this pretty major rule of the game, and that's an ability that I have. Now my opponent might have earned a different ability that is, also breaking the game quite a bit, but it's different, and so now we have some different paths, and this doesn't have that. And I think that's the biggest thing where this one's going to be lacking. And head to head, I'll probably pick Burgundy over Tuscany, but this is a really good game, and stands on its own. Really, I really think it does. It stands on its own 2 feet and does its own thing, and maybe was even kind of a disservice to evoke the name of Castles of Burgundy, and probably did a disservice in the comparison. But anyway, Castles of Tuscany, good game. Stefan Feld, back-to-back games. My number 2 game, Bonfire. This is a repeat from last month, where I played it last month, and I only played it solo this month. I didn't get a chance to play with other people, because I realized last month I only played it. I played the rules incorrectly both times, and so I wanted to play it again with the correct rules. And it does make the game a little harder. It makes the game a little more strict. Like you got to think about things a little bit differently, but it's a fun game. I really enjoy it. I want to find some people who will play this game with me and explore this game some more, because I do think it's really good. And anyway, number 2 for this month is Bonfire. And my number 1 game this month is an older game, but it is new to me, and is reminiscent of one of my other all-time favorite games, and that is Newton. This is from Simone Luciani and Nestor Mangoni from Cranio Creations. And one of my friends who had played it long before I did, and it's one of the reasons why it's taken me this long to play it, is they didn't, I don't think they liked it. My main gaming partners who had played it before without me didn't love it, but I got my own copy for fairly cheap actually, and so finally got this to table and really enjoyed it. But it has sort of the same bone structure as the Voyages of Marco Polo, which is one of my all-time favorite games. And that being said, now you're going to want the comparison. I think Voyages of Marco Polo is a better game. There's a couple things that this game is missing, I think, that makes Marco Polo such a good game. But what I like about this one is your decision space is shrunk just enough to where it's pretty easy to explain the game. There are some moving parts that interact with one another, and you kind of have to understand how they interact with one another to play well. But what you're doing on your turn is pretty simple. You're going to pick one of your hand of cards. You're going to play it. You're going to match the symbols that you've already previously played or that you've saved from earlier. And you get to do that ability to that power. with some slight differences depending on the ability. And part of it is moving around this board, sort of like Marco Polo, where you're trying to move around the board. One thing about Marco Polo, it's very difficult to move. It's hard to figure out how to move. In this game, it can be difficult to move, but it's not hard to figure out how to move. You play the card, and sometimes you have to pay to move across certain pathways. But yeah, you get there. There's like this technology board. Again, it's not hard to figure out how to move up, but you play the card that has a technology symbol. However many of those symbols you have is how far you can move up on that track, and it has some branches on it, and so you're making some decisions that way. You need some money, play the card that lets you move on the track that lets you get money, and the more of those symbols that you can scrum up, the more money you get. And some other stuff like that. It just plays, that part of it, I feel it just runs smoothly. But the main thing in this game is you have this board, and you're trying to fulfill requirements on this board so that you can, when you do that action, cover those things up, and you're trying to do them in such a way that you're going to score some points during this point scoring phase. And man, it triggers my brain in just the right way, but I really, really enjoy it. It is not a light game. It's going to be a media experience, but really, it can play pretty quickly. And so when I'm all done, it's like, hey, I did this thing. It didn't take me 8 hours to do it. It didn't take me 4 hours to do it. It took me about an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how quickly my opponents were playing, And yeah, I had to do some thinking. I had some moments where I felt clever. I felt like I accomplished something when I did well. When I didn't accomplish something, it was like, oh, I didn't do that well. Or I did not, you're buying cards in the game, and like you're kind of crafting like what you can do in the future based on those decisions. Like, okay, I didn't do a great job making decisions in this phase of the game. That's kind of where I struggled there, and I could kind of analyze it, and that's fun for me. And so, anyway, my favorite game this month, Newton. Took me a couple years to get to it, but glad I did. And you'll probably see this game in the future on my list because I did like it that much. Anyway, that's this month again. Yeah, if you like these, subscribe the video, subscribe to my channel. I don't put out a lot of videos. 1 or 2 a month usually is my clip here. Might put out a couple here in August. I got a little more time as a school teacher. I got my July is a little less busy from work anyways, and might be able to make a few more videos. But anyway, I have fun with this, and I really need to come up with a tagline.
Where? I'm making a YouTube video, Bev.